Good morning. You listen to FortAlley.net, and I'm Kemp Harr. This morning, my guest is Geoff Gordon, Executive Director with the Fuse Commercial Flooring Alliance. Jeff, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Kemp, and it's always good to talk to you.
Yeah, I know I've caught you. I think you're ready to wind down for the end of the year. So I've caught you in California with family, but I just thought I'd touch base with you as we end out this year. Most people know Fuse is one of the two big groups of commercial flooring contractors. And commercial has been, in this past year, leading some of the growth opportunities, doing better than the residential business. As you look back on the year, give me a couple of highlights.
You know, it's been an interesting year, Kemp. I mean, a lot of the news cycles have not been very positive, as you know, and information about the economy coming out and everything else. There's just a lot of negative headwinds. When I look back over the year, I think we've had a good year. Our business, we're going to finish up flat, maybe up a couple of points. I know that's in line with where a lot of the manufacturers are. And of course, I'm talking strictly commercial. So we're happy with that. And we've had a lot of discussion about how are we going to budget for 2026. And even when I talk to our suppliers, I know they've been head scratching a lot over the last few months. But we look at 26 as similar to 25. It's not going to be great, but it's not going to be bad. We're going to forecast a little growth because we've been adding a lot of members. But at the end of the day, if we have a flat year in 26 or up a few points, we'll take that. We think that would be a good year.
You know, I'd kind of like to bring out, we did a commercial flooring contractor survey in this last issue. We do it every year. And it was interesting to see there's some concern about what next year might bring, a little bit concern about rising costs and how much, healthcare is going up, right?
Well, and I always love reading that survey because there's so much good information in there. And I would say, this year there was probably more negativity, like you said, and that could be a reason why we've added as many members as we have this year. I believe we're going to wind up with 21 or 22 members, which is the most we've ever had in any year. And I think when you're in challenging times, and this is no different than when we went through COVID 5 years ago, you want to be part of a group so that you know what's going on. And recently I've been traveling and I saw 3 of our really good Fuse members, and all 3 of them said the same thing. Business activity, not bad. Backlogs, actually pretty good. Backlogs are an indicator of the following year, and we track them at about 9 months, so we're okay with that. But the one thing I heard, and I hear this all the time now, is healthcare costs. We've tried to look into putting together some kind of national program. I know other groups like ours have looked into that. We're going to continue to look into that because anything we could do to mitigate those rising costs would be helpful. You look at a contracting business, the margins are already pretty slim. And when you take significant hits in cost, like healthcare, the other one would be liability insurance has also gotten expensive. If we can do anything to help with that, that would be a great thing for Fuse.
Looking at the fastest growing vertical sectors, on page 66 of that survey, it's showing that healthcare, acute care is number 1, K through 12 is number 2, multifamily number 3, corporate number 4, and higher ed number 5. So that was kind of interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what our surveys show in that exact order. Healthcare and education were very strong this year. We don't play as much in multifamily, but the companies in our network that are in it have had a pretty good year. Corporate is the one that everybody keeps looking at. And to me, corporate is market dependent. We've got some areas of the country doing very well there. That business has picked up. I live, as you know, in Austin, Texas, and I've never lived in a market that's booming like Austin. And as a matter of fact, they're building 2 commercial high-rise buildings downtown. And that's almost unheard of anywhere else. So we do feel that commercial office sector is making a comeback, although not at the speed that we would like.
So next year, let's take a look at that for a second. I know Fuse is celebrating 20th anniversary, right?
It's hard to believe, Kemp. It just tells me I'm getting older. But yeah, we're going to have our 20th anniversary. We're going to celebrate it at our meeting, which is going to be in San Diego at the Hilton Bayfront next March. And we've been working on this, of course, for the last, 8 or 9 months. It's going to be a big event. I know based on the early numbers we're seeing, we're going to have the biggest crowd we've ever had, but it's hard to believe how fast time goes by. And I can tell you, Kemp, and I think about this at this time of the year, I'm very grateful to be associated with a group of people like this. I mean, we have just such high quality members, and they're all willing to share best practices. And I always look at us as a big family. So as you know me, these annual events are the most exciting thing that I do, and I'm really looking forward to it.
I think it's interesting. I look back and think about when Ron Lee called me and said that he'd named you as his successor. I thought, wow, I wonder if he'll be able to do as good a job as Ron. And look how it's paid out. How long ago was that?
I took over as executive director in 2015. And of course, following Ron Lee, that was big shoes to fill. But more importantly, what a great mentor for me. And he's one of the smartest people I've ever been associated with in this business, and we still keep in regular contact. He's definitely a part of my thought process as we continue to move forward with Fuse.
While we're talking about this last issue, the December issue, I need to call out too that we did a best practices on GP flooring, and their business is on fire, isn't it?
Josh and Abby Reinhardt have just an amazing business. I mean, they bought that business 10 plus years ago and had never been in the flooring business before. Josh had been, really on the general contracting side, and they have built that into just a powerhouse and just have done everything right. They certainly have benefited, I know, from being in Fuse. They've told us that, but I would also say we've really benefited from having them as members. And Abby was a board member, and now Josh is a board member, and their contributions have just been superb over the years.
All right, Geoff, I just want to touch base with you here as the year ended out, and I hope you have a great holiday. It's good to catch up. Again, been talking to Geoff Gordon, Executive Director with Fuse, and you've been listening to Kemp Harr and FloorDaily.net.